I'm here to talk about Jim Dunlop and MXR pedals. If you haven't been over to the Jim Dunlop site in a while, I suggest you go right now because everything you could possibly need for the gigging guitar player is there. From picks to cables to pedals, their iconic line of MXR pedals, the Jim Dunlop Crybaby, the Tortex picks, need I go on? There's even a signature pick for most, if not all, of your favorite guitar players right there. Straps, strings, everything you could possibly want. I've personally used Jim Dunlop and MXR products for as long as I can remember. They've also been a partner here at the podcast since the beginning, and I'm honored that they have been with us, and I love the folks over there. I think you will too, so check out what they're doing at jimdunlop.com. I'd like to welcome our newest sponsor, Schecter Guitars. They are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. 50 years. They have sent me the 50th anniversary of the C1. Man, this thing is just beautiful. It plays great. It was set up perfectly once I got it out of the case. There's something for everyone over there at Schecter. Find out more of what they're doing at schecterguitars.com. There, folks, and thank you for stopping by here at the Anti-Heroes Podcast with your host, Zach Blair. I am Zach Blair. I'll get into my guest in a second, and man, what a guest it is. It's another family episode. It's another good friend of mine, and I always love these episodes because, you know, frankly, it's just an excuse to talk to people that I know really well. You know, I want to talk, we don't get too nerdy about gear. I mean, we do get nerdy about gear, but I don't ever get nerdy personally with you guys. And, you know, I'm positing a question here at the beginning. To profile or not to profile? That's what I want to ask you folks. You know, I am of both minds. I do profile currently in the Rise Against band just because of the way we travel and the way we work and the way we move around the world. It's more efficient. And this one rack unit does everything. It has every amp ever made in it, and they sound good. You know, that's the thing is, I hear all of the arguments about, well, nothing sounds like a 2-amp, and you're totally right. I do hear the sort of digital squelchiness in a lot of them, and a lot of the tones and the captures and things like that. And I personally haven't used fractals yet, so I'm thinking of going to fractals. I'm currently using a Kemper. I have used the Quad Cortex. I've talked about it on here before. I was using Quad Cortex, and I had an issue with the aftermarket sort of pedal switching unit that I couldn't find that sort of communicates with the Quad Cortex. They want you to use that as its own pedal unit, and I understand that because it is a pedal unit. Guys that don't have a tech off to the side doing their pedal switching for them, or it is time coded. That's one of the features of the Quad Cortex is that you can time code, meaning you can run a click track and run your pedal changes and things on the click track. My band does not do that. My band, you know, for better or for worse, you know, we sound and play like a real, you know, a band of 4 guys up there actually making things happen in real time. With an exception of a few things that we have started implementing recently, but it's maybe like a song where we have some things on a click track, but we're not time coding that. There's nothing going through our sort of, there's no MIDI switching happening on that. So I am left with this prospect of, I like to keep things simple. And there's something that always just warms my cockles, for lack of a better term, about people doing a lot with little. You know, I think it's maybe because of my background, maybe because I was a guy that, you know, carried my own gear for a long time, and I had a Marshall half stack and a guitar and maybe, you know, a tuner, and I made it work. And I still like that concept. I love it when there's a guy that is doing like a Nuno Bettencourt or a Zach Wilde or even an Yngwie Malmsteen or a Tom Morello that are doing all these things with 4 or 5 pedals. But I am in a collective, and I have crew guys that work for us, and I don't load my own gear. I don't set up my own gear. I'm being transparent here, folks. I'm not sending my shit through an airport and all that, and trucking and all that. So I have had to compromise what I kind of want to do on that end of things. And again, I did the taste test. I did the listen test. I did the blindfold. And I was hard pressed to tell a difference in what I was using. So my big question here is, now, I don't use boutique pedals. I am of the mind that I would like to be able to go to a Guitar Center or whatever it might be and buy something that has broken. So I use MXR pedals. Shouts outs to sponsor here, Jim Dunlop and MXR. And so I like to be able to get it done with a carbon copy delay, a phase 90 pedal, a lead boost, and a crybaby. So what I do miss about profiling and MIDI switching systems and things like that is they be able to in real time, bend down and adjust your pedals. And so what I am currently thinking about doing, and I've had many people tell me that this is sort of sacrilegious, and using an analog pedal board and using the modeler for different amps. So use a different amp for lead tone, different amp for your rhythm tone, different amp for your clean tone, and then have an analog pedal board to accentuate and complement said amps. Am I crazy? Is that redundant? But that's what I'm thinking about doing. Okay, so my guest today is Orville Neeley III. Now, I've wanted to have Orville on ever since I started this. And Orville has been a really very, very close immediate circle friend of mine for quite some time now. And Orville is a bit of an anomaly. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays drums, he plays bass, he plays guitar. He has professionally recorded and made a living at all three instruments as well. On drums, he recorded and was a member of the band A Giant Dog, the amazing band A Giant Dog, Austin band. They have great records out on Merge Records, so go and pick those up. Also from the seminal, now defunct label Tic Tac Totally, put out their first few records, the ones that most of Orville's body of work. Orville plays guitar and sings. He was the frontman for his own band, the Ovation IIIs, which is his initials. Played guitar and sang for a band called Bad Sports. Again, an amazing, amazing band with our friend Daniel Freed, who we've talked about a few times on here as well. And I probably will have him someday. Orville plays bass in Radioactivity. But as of recently, of the last few years, Orville now is the guitar player in the band Spiritual Cramp, who I've talked about on here as well, and who just did a lot of touring with the Rise Against band last year. Amazing band, and hopefully you've done yourself a favor and you've gone and seen Spiritual Cramp. They are currently on tour all the time. They just finished up a European tour with the Hives, which I really wish I could have seen that. But last year did a nationwide tour with the band Bad Nerves and toured with the Rise Against band. Amazing band. You got to go check them out. They have a new record out with an old buddy, John Congleton, produced. Another Dallas guy. Texas, folks. Texas. Orville's Texas. John's Texas. Spiritual Cramp aren't Texas. But again, for all of its faults, politically, it makes some good musicians, man. And I'm not including myself in that. But so I've been wanting to talk to Orville for a long time. We bonded over music quite some time ago. And I mean, when I say that, we would just drive to each other's respective spaces and show each other what we had. And because we could both play bass, drums, guitar, we would switch around and, hey, what's that thing you got? And that's how we bonded. And in my personal opinion, that's the best way to bond, because you're creating with somebody. And just forged a friendship, and I just love him. I love him a lot. He's one of my favorite people in the world. So let me shut up, and I'll get into my interview with Orville Neeley III.
Hey, how you doing?
How's it going there, bud?
Pretty good. Just turned 40 yesterday.
It was his birthday yesterday, folks.
Yeah, I don't know when this episode comes out, but,
I don't either.
Whenever this comes out, yesterday I turned 40 years old, so I'm finally part of the club.
Welcome in. And being 40 in Los Angeles, man, it's like, don't they, take you out back and shoot you in the back of the head?
Yeah, I mean, I was driving home after going to a movie with some friends last night, just like, oh, I just turned 40 and I'm in LA. Definitely not in Texas anymore, even though I've been out here for 7 years, so.
You're not in Texas anymore. I think in Texas when you're 40, it's like, you're just like a 15 or 20 or whatever. I think being old and curmudgeonly in Texas is like it suits you. Well, we'll get right into it. You and I haven't talked too much about your guitar past or your guitar history, so we can do that here. And let me preface this with I love these episodes, and I've said this 1,000 times on this podcast, where it's a friend of mine. It's actually somebody that I know and that I spent time with, and we've gone to movies and we've spent holidays together, and I love these the most. Unfortunately, I have a lot of these types of friends because all I've ever done with my life is be a musician. But you are immediate circle guy I talk to quite often, so this is going to be a lot of fun. And I've been thinking a lot about like, holy shit, because we're talking about life shit.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, and we both know, hey, we are musicians. We respect each other. We like each other's work. We got all that out of the way in the first place, but then we never kind of revisited that and talked about shared history and pasts and what brought you to what you do. So, what did bring you to guitar in the first place?
I think it was probably when I was about 6 years old when I was like, man, I really want to be in a band because
Yeah.
I listened to the radio growing up a lot, and especially like classic rock and like oldies radio, because that was like what my parents listened to. And
Sure.
so the first band that I was like really into was like the Beatles. Like I remember hearing that and being like, what is this? And like riding around
Yeah.
with my dad and him being like, this is the Beatles, and then getting into that. And like whenever we would go on like a family road trip, we had this old Suburban, and my parents would pop that first Boston album
That's
into
a great album.
they would pop that into the tape deck and fade it to the back and turn it all the way up so that they wouldn't have to listen to us kids.
Yeah.
So much of my
Smart.
early childhood up until a certain point was spent listening to that album over and over again in the back of a car. And it just like the sound of that record is amazing. And I got
It's
like
amazing.
those songs like just like latched into my brain. So there's like, and like the guitar sounds that he got, which I found out later like how he was doing that from a friend of mine that worked for the band back in the
Wow.
70s. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like as much as I wanted to play guitar, like I was also really attracted to like the other instruments. Like I was obsessed with like looking, like whenever I would get an album, I started with a cassette collection, and
Yeah.
then eventually moved on to CDs and then records. By the time I was in like 8th grade, I was buying records because in the late 90s they were really cheap, so you
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
go get like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath albums for $1. And so I'd like that, and when I was in 4th grade, I think because we had gotten cable sometime when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, and so it had MTV and VH1, and I would start seeing these music videos and like looking at like what the guitar players are playing, like looking at all the instruments, but especially guitars, and just being mesmerized by these different styles of guitars
Sure.
that people were playing and the sounds that they made, and like seeing stacks of Marshall amps. Then I would look at like I got really into Kiss when I was in 4th grade,
Mm.
and started like my first purchase, like a tape collection, was like 5 Kiss albums, a couple of Green Day tapes, and then like one or two other things. And they always had in the liner notes, it would say like Kiss uses Pearl drums and Gibson guitars because we want the best, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I was just like, so I gotta play a Gibson, but I didn't own a Gibson until like 10 or 11 years ago. Like I
Yeah.
was pretty well into playing in bands before I actually owned one.
Right.
Um,
Well, I want to go back there and that Boston record. That's a great reference. It was what an amazing record. The bass tone, just everything on that record is so fucking amazing. He also had the Rockman. That was
right.
basically like the one of the first sort of amp profilers. You know what I mean? So that was a great reference. And well, I want to get into your guitar choice because you have one specific guitar that I do want to talk about that we've been talking about
Yeah.
for quite a while, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
how you got that. So that would have been, let's see, you were born in what, 85?
86.
86, okay. Because I'm 12 years older than you.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great time, and that was a great, and I think it's funny because if you were born in 86, well, you were 9 in the 90s. So going back to Kiss records, because Kiss records were like, they were a little before my time. I mean, Kiss,
Yeah.
I was alive when Kiss was putting out records, but I was 4 and 5 years old. I was like 5 or 6 in the 70s,
Yeah.
and the big kids that we, in our apartment complex, the like stoners that would just steal their parents' cigarettes and shit, they were into Kiss. And for my brother and I, it was like, oh, these are superheroes playing rock and roll. So that,
Hmm.
we got obsessed with it. So it says a lot about you how even at 9 in the 90s, you went back to Kiss instead of just being like, I'm into Green Day and I'm into like whatever is punk nowadays, Rancid and stuff like that. That was like, happening at that point. I think
Right.
that says a little bit about you and your taste level of what I've come to know, about you. You dig a little deeper than the average Joe.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know why it is, but I think because of like the music that I was exposed to
Mm-hmm.
when I was really young, like just really stuck with me because, like I said, riding around with my dad and listening to, I mean, we listen to like oldies radio sometimes and classic rock radio a lot, but then like 1990, I was 4 years old, and we moved from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Houston, Texas, or
Right.
Spring, which is a suburb of Houston. And at that time, like the contemporary radio station, which my parents also listened to, was still playing like for a couple of years. It was like still a lot of the stuff from the 80s, like you hear like The Cure and Depeche Mode and
Sure.
New Order and all the like big hits from that time period. I could go on and on. Tears for Fears, whatever. U2, but like then Nirvana exploded and Pearl Jam and all the grunge stuff, and so it was like my parents were listening to that. So I was listening to whatever was on. And,
Right.
and and it was like a mixture of that and also all this old stuff that for some reason attracted to me. Like I remember hearing Louie Louie on oldies radio and being like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah.
like just being like this. There was something about that, and hearing like 96 Tears by like Question Mark and the Mysterians on
Mm-hmm.
oldies radio, where I was like, these older records like have a thing to them that the newer stuff doesn't. And I was just like, I've always been attracted to older music and getting into like being somewhat of a music historian. I mean, I don't claim to know nearly everything, and sometimes when I'm hanging out with people who really know their shit, like
Right.
I'm like, I guess I have pretty basic taste, but like I don't know. I've always been attracted to, even as a kid, I sort of fetishized the 60s and 70s, for
Well,
like the style,
I think that's true. And, I'm a guy that also loved and was raised with 60s and 70s music because my father was a classic rock radio DJ. So to meet a guy that was 12 years younger than me and you were introducing me to like, I remember you turned me on to, I had heard of Sonic's Rendezvous, but you were
Yeah.
like into that band. And remember you burned me off a CD, and I had never
Oh
heard it.
yeah.
I knew it was Fred Sonic Smith's band, and you were like, no, you got to check this out. And so, like, to get turned on to a band of that era that I never even really listened to by a guy that was 12 years younger than me, I was like, okay, he knows his shit. He's onto something else. And as a result, I feel like your music at least earlier on, and well, actually kind of up until now, you've sort of always followed that, for lack of a better term, quote unquote garage rock, but basically just being in a real rock and roll band that does things the way that older bands did that. I was sort of getting obsessed with bands of your ilk before I met you, other bands that were on Dirt Nap Records
Hmm.
and Tic Tac Totally, the label that put out the Obi and Threes and put out a Giant Dog, and just kind of going through the Castle Face Records roster, In the Red, Merge, whatever, but that was doing those sorts of bands and really exploring those catalogs. And your bands kept coming up, whether it was Bad Sports or Obi and Threes or a Giant Dog. And
Yeah.
so I think that says a lot about where you chose to sort of make your mark. The funny thing about you is though is you played many different instruments professionally. You played drums on records that a band put out and you went and made a living playing drums. You've played bass in the band the Radioactivity, who's good friends of both of ours, Jeff Burke from Mark Min.
Mhm.
You play guitar, you've sang in front of the band. So was that the impetus early on as well, or is that just happenstance? Like, this band of your friends were together, they didn't need another guitar player, so okay, I'm going to play drums.
I don't know. I think as much as going back to like the Kiss obsession that I had for quite
Sure.
a long time, like I've always been kind of scatterbrained and felt like I had too many interests at once. And so like as much as I loved Kiss, which is a funny thing too, because like they're not really regarded as like virtuosic players, but I was like something about their style, I was like, it just rocks harder and I can learn these songs.
You
I
can
liked,
learn the songs.
yeah,
That's
I
it.
liked all the other classic rock bands too. And, like AC/DC was another like favorite by the time I was in like fifth grade, and
Sure.
like, it's like, oh, I can play this. It's all like bar and power chords and stuff. And I'm like, but there's something about like the obscurity factor or like, and the thing is, these were really popular bands, but because nobody my age was into it, I was like, I want to do that. And so
Right.
like when it came to like drummers, I got really into drums because of Peter Criss and like that big stupid solo that he does on the first Alive record,
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun,
And
dun. Yeah.
and so simultaneously with like getting into wanting to be a guitar player, I was also obsessing. I remember asking Santa for a bass guitar when I was like 10 or something like that
Right.
because I had seen like that Deep Purple Machine Head album cover that I
Oh
think has like
yeah.
a
The
jazz
bass.
bass on it. And
Yeah.
I was like, please let me get one of those Fender jazz basses, and like it didn't happen.
Santa told you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, but like right around the same time that I started learning to play guitar on my dad's old Gibson acoustic. It's one of those like not totally full scale. I guess it's like a J45 or something.
Hmm.
But it's like this old guitar. The action was terrible. Like I learned to play "Come as You Are" because it's like three notes, and it's actually '80s by
I
Killing
was about to
Joke.
say that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but which I learned later. All that was happening at the same time, getting
Sure.
into playing drums, getting into playing guitar. I didn't actually play bass in a band till I was like 19, I want to say. But like
Right.
that happened by chance too, and I still have my first bass. So,
Oh wow. But it was all just kind of it was all just playing music for you. It was all
yeah,
being a musician, whether it was drums, bass, guitar, you were still,
right.
it was okay with you. Right, right, right.
Anything to get into a band. And my very first band was with my friend Jason Smith and our other friend Mike McCaskill or John McCaskill, who Mike is his brother. But yeah, we had a band when I was in eighth grade, and we had told people in our school that we had a band before we had actually played together. And I was like saving up like my lawn mowing money to buy a drum set. And I think we played our first show in the spring of 2000 when I was still in eighth grade to like 400 people covering like a Stevie Ray Vaughan song because my friend Jason could already play like Stevie Ray Vaughan even when we
Yeah.
were like 13.
Yeah.
But since my freshman year of high school, I've always been in more than one band. I started a band with my friend Andy Bauer and Andrew Cashin that we eventually called the Wee Beasties. There's another band in Denton by the same name, but we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And I played drums in that band first, and then we found another guy who was really good at drums, and I wanted to play guitar, and I was already trying to write songs for the band. So we had Brian Bachman, who went on to be in Mammoth Grinder later. He played drums, and I was on guitar and doing vocals and singing and writing stuff for the band. So like,
Andrew
um,
Cashin, who and Jason Smith also played in OB and threes, and then
Right.
Andrew went on to start A Giant Dog, which you played drums in.
Right.
Jason Smith, which shout out to Jason Smith, also Austin friend. You guys also did Daniel Freed's band, who I play with as well, which is TV's Daniel. It's all incestuous, folks. Everyone in Texas plays with everyone. But so you've been playing with those guys for quite a while now. Wow.
Yeah, I played music with Andrew Cashin and Andy Bauer from the time that we were 14 or 15 until like 12 years ago, because I was in A Giant Dog for basically the first 5 years of its existence, and I played drums on the first three records.
Those are
But
great records. Fucking great records.
I mean, I go back, dude. I've gone back and listened to those occasionally, and I'm just like, Jesus, how did I play those drum parts? Like, I
I
haven't
mean,
played drum.
they're fucking great drum parts, and it's not like, oh, they're great drum parts for a guitar player. They're just those are great drum parts, and those records are great. They're written amazing. What a great band! That is, if you haven't heard A Giant Dog, go listen to A Giant Dog.
It was fun
Yeah,
while it lasted,
excellent.
you know.
Sure,
But
sure.
I had to move on and do stuff where I was writing music for the
Yeah,
band.
that sort of begat, and I wanted to get into that. That sort of begat the OB and threes, which is you had a few records out by the time I met you, and I was a fan. And I'd kind of like, oh, that's the guy that also plays drums in this thing. And I'd seen you around a bit. And man, I don't even remember who actually introduced us, but I do
I think it was
remember hitting it
Daniel.
off. It might have been Daniel, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I had met Daniel because Dracula's had recorded with Mark and Jeff, and they had just come back from a Radioactivity tour, which Daniel plays with Radioactivity. And I think he was like, man, you and Orville are going to get along. And we did famously. To get into, getting ahead of myself just a bit. Oh, and to update people at where you are now, of course, we will get into Spiritual Cramp, but you also have the band Memo PST. You had Richard Rose. I don't know the status of that currently.
Richard Rose basically became Memo PST because Richard Rose was my buddy Tom Triplett, who played in OB and threes also.
Right.
But he had moved out here in like late 2016 or early 2017, right around the same time that Chris Shaw from Memphis and X Cult fame, he moved out here, and they started jamming together. And then like right before I moved to LA in 2018, they asked if I'd want to play bass for them. So I learned the songs and started playing with them, and that went on for another 3 years. And then the band broke up in the fall of 2021, and Chris and I agreed that we should keep doing something together. So like basically like within a month of that band breaking up, like Chris and I were getting together and writing new stuff, and that eventually became Memo PST. It took like about a year. Yeah, within the span of a year, I think we started writing stuff. We got a drummer, and then we got a bass player. Our first bass player was Mike B, who sings in Spiritual Cramp.
Oh, right, right.
And he actually recorded on the first EP with us that we made a tape and put it on Bandcamp, and then, went on to make an album the year after that and put it out on In the Red in 2024.
It's
Yeah.
great. And it's great. You also have War Blob with our buddy Sean Powell, who is the
Right.
drummer of Surfboard, but he sings in War Blob. Has War Blob recorded?
Yeah, we have an EP that we put out I think it was summer of 2024, we put out an EP, and we went and we've done a couple of shows in Austin. That band doesn't play very much, because like
Sure.
everybody else is busy doing stuff. Like Adam and Sean both do Surfboard, and Monty, he's been in some other bands, and I think he was most recently touring with GBH,
Oh,
playing
wow.
guitar for them. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, we haven't gotten together in a little bit, and I would like to. It's just the Spiritual Cramp schedule has been really busy, so we haven't been
Yeah.
able to get together and write anything.
Well, let's get into that. So, when you first moved out to LA, I was one of your biggest cheerleaders with that. Because I was like, look, Austin is good for many things, but it's also good for like being a guy in a bunch of bands, and there's a lot of gigs to play. There's a lot of places to play, and you can easily just sort of circle the bowl in Austin and just play a bunch of shows and be a known person here. But you are such a talent that in the back of my head as your buddy was like, dude, you got to get out of here. There's opportunity for you in all the places. So I was really happy for you that you joined a band like Spiritual Cramp, who such a cool band, such nice guys, and doing so well. And in my opinion, very lucky to have you. So how did that all sort of come about?
So right after I moved here in August of 2018, I'd been playing in bass in Radioactivity for a few years at that point, touring with them because Mark got kind of busy with other stuff. So we had a tour coming up in the fall of 2018, and our booking agent is Brian Gorsener from Nightbirds. And so like he put us with Spiritual Cramp, and we did, I think, like, I don't know, like 10 shows with them or something. And at the time, the lineup was completely different. Like Mike B, the singer, was the only person on the road at that time that's still in the group. Although Mike Fenton, the bass player, he's always been in the group, but
Right.
he has, like businesses that he's running at home. So like he would send somebody else out to play bass for him. So we did that tour together, right? And so I kept in touch with some of those guys. And then like a couple years went by, like once the pandemic started to kind of like clear up, and like after I had, or around the time that Mike B was playing bass in Memo PST for like our early days, he had asked me to fill in on bass for a show for them. And
Right.
it ended up not happening, but he like hit me up a couple other times after that. He was like, "Hey, would you be interested in like filling in, for some dates on this tour?" And it didn't line up until the year before last.
Right.
It's weird to say that now because it's 2026 already. But yeah,
Yeah.
in like
Well,
early, I want to say like late February of 2024, he hit me up asking about doing some dates filling in on bass over the summer of 24. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested, and like talked about it for a little bit, figured some things out with the management. And then in May, we got together, and I had plenty of time to like learn the songs on bass again, and got in and practiced them with some of the guys. And then eventually got together with the whole band and did that tour. And at a certain point, they asked if I'd want to play guitar in the band. And I got to play guitar for the first time with them at Riot Fest in
mm-hmm.
2024. And I worked my ass off to like get the songs down on guitar. I mean, it's weird when you already know like a set, but you know it from
Yeah.
one angle.
From a different
Yeah, and
perspective.
when I was on bass, like I wasn't doing backup vocals. I wasn't using, pedals really, so I didn't have to like turn reverb or delay on and off and all that stuff, or like boosts for solos and stuff. So like relearning the set from the guitar was a challenge, but it was
Sure.
fun. And I would just like set up at my practice space and have like the song playing over one set of speakers, and then have like the microphone in front of me and the pedal board and the amp behind me like I was on stage, and just like
That's great.
practice the songs over and over again. And
That's the way to do it.
yeah, and then by early last year, the second tour that we did with you guys with Rise Against, I was on guitar for that Euro trip, and that was
Well,
my first real like tour doing that.
it was really serendipitous that we had already submitted Spiritual Cramp to go on tour with us, and then that ended up this one of my closest buddies just happens to join that band, and it's the first time they go on tour with us, and you were in the band. But in true Orville fashion, you did the first tour with us on bass, and
Yeah.
then the second tour, we took you guys to Europe, and you were playing guitar, and that's just so like, well, he's good enough. He can play bass, he can play guitar, he can fucking come play drums, and again, I feel like you're lucky to be in that band. They're lucky to have you in that band. It's just a perfect marriage. It's a bunch of great guys, and if anyone hasn't seen Spiritual Cramp, go see him. You also just did Europe with the Hives, which was that's an amazing lineup, and I wish I could have seen that.
Dude,
I don't. It was. I bet it was great.
it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you on for too much longer, but let's get into your gear a bit. So, you are a guy, and I don't know the model number of the guitar, but you have the Ovation. What is the Ovation guitar that you have? Because it's also the one that Josh Homme has popularized.
Yeah, it's an Ultra GP.
Ultra GP.
You want to see it? I have it right next to me because I knew you would ask about it.
Well, bring it up. Yeah, bring it. Let's see it.
Okay, hold on.
So for those uninitiated, Josh Homme played one of these and popularized this guitar. It's sort of, yeah, it's such a cool guitar. It's sort of Ovation's version of a Les Paul, but it's double cutaway. So it's thick like a Les Paul. It's kind of a Les G, which is something that I've been trying to get made forever.
The Les
but
G.
it is such a cool guitar, and you already had one. When did give me the story on that? Where did you get that guitar?
So when I was in high school, I want to say this was like New Year's Eve of 2003, maybe. Yeah. I think. And I was just riding around with my buddy Andy Bauer, who I played with in A Giant Dog. He liked to go to pawn shops, and so we were checking out different pawn shops around the Spring, Texas area. Mm-hmm. We were over on FM 1960, and I don't even remember the name of the place, but there were so many pawn shops over there, and I'm sure you remember, like, late 90s, early 2000s was like a really good time to go find stuff at, like, cool older stuff pawn shops when it comes to guitars, and for like a decent price. So this guitar, this Ultra GP, was hanging on the wall at this guitar shop, right? Or at this pawn shop. And it had a price tag of $160.
Oh my God.
And, being a teenager at that time, like, I didn't have a job. Like, I just went to school and I would, like, mow lawns for money sometimes, So Andy was really good at talking to people. Like, his dad taught him how to, like, bargain with pawn shop people to get, a better price on stuff. And so it seems like this thing must not have been consigned and was probably just sold outright. So it was listed for 160, right? And he went and he was like, let me talk to the guy. I was like, this thing is really cool, And I didn't even know that Josh Homme played one of these at the time. Like, I hadn't seen it before. I was just, like, vaguely aware that Ovation made solid body guitars, and I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And he was like, let me go talk to the guy. And so he got the guy to take $40 off of the price.
Holy shit.
And on top of that, I was like, all right, $120. I'm going to put it on layaway. So I gave the guy like a down payment of like, $50 or something like that. And I came back a few days later and paid it off,
Wow.
And so, like,
those are worth so much money now. They're worth, I find them in like pristine condition for like $5,000 on Reverb and stuff. Like, they're just, people love those guitars, man.
Yeah, well, and this one was never in pristine condition. It was already kind of beat up. Like, my guitar, I had a guitar teacher briefly who, when I brought this in, he was like, oh, you got a lot of whiskey marks on that thing. And I was like, what do you mean whiskey marks? He's like, you get drunk and you bang up your guitar. And I'm like, oh,
there
okay, it is. Yeah. But eventually, like, I lent it to a friend to play for a show, which was a big mistake because he was, he really thrashed around a lot.
Right.
Some friends of mine had this band called The Undoing of David Wright up in Denton back when I first lived there. And I eventually started a band with those guys called Chief Death Rage, and that was my first time playing bass in a band. But anyway, I lent him my Marshall. I had one of those JCM 900s, the 2100 model, like not with the reverb or anything on it. And I lent him this guitar, which, mind you, I would play this thing through the Marshall amp in my dorm room at like top volume, playing like.
Wish everyone loved you.
They hated me, and that, or like playing like Ramones records at like high volume in my dorm room. But I lent him this guitar, and he was thrashing around with it on stage, and this part of the headstock got chipped off.
So
and it's
for those that are listening, an Ovation headstock, it's kind of like a fan out on the very tip of it, and so the left side of Orville's fan, if you're looking at the right side of Orville's fan, is just completely seared off, like broken off. It's broken well though. It's like you almost could take off the other side of it and make just a flying V headstock out of it.
yeah. I mean, like at least it didn't like severely damage or like
Sure.
break the headstock.
Were
But
you
yeah,
pissed when he gave it back to you? Like, sorry, dude.
dude, I was heartbroken. But it was
I
like
bet.
I think I found the chunk somewhere, but I was like, I don't
Oh.
know how to get this back. It didn't fit anymore, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so like
Mm-hmm.
I lost that extra chunk of wood a long time ago. But
Josh Homme, I know he was real precious about what he used back before. He would never tell people what he used, and then the pictures started showing up like of that guitar, and there became like a sensation about it. But I've never played one until I met you, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's those," you know. That was just always just interesting. I think you need to pull out of retirement and just play it only, though.
I
That's
did.
that's
I
good,
did actually. Yeah, I was using it for my solo stuff for Orvie,
good.
but I had it with 12s on it and I was playing it in C sharp standard.
Oh yeah,
Um, and then I decided like last year I was going to start using it again in Memo PST. And for some reason, setting it up for 12s in C sharp standard, if you just throw 10s back on there, it's pretty close to being set up
oh really?
in E standard, you know?
Yeah,
So. But yeah, I used it on the single that Memo put out last summer, and it sounds so good. You
it's
know,
such a
like
cool guitar, and it's such a discernible, cool guitar. You also recently put a like an aftermarket clone into a guitar. Do you want to talk a
hmm
little bit about that?
yeah. So my friend John Dwyer from the OCs
Hmm.
has a little greenhouse on his back patio, and I was house sitting for him from time to time and watching his dog when he was out on tour. And he had some cats that lived outside, so I'd feed them in the greenhouse. And like I went out there one day and was just like, "What is this thing?" And it was an old like Electra, and I remembered Electra because like Daniel Freed had like a couple of different Electra like Rickenbacker copies when we were
Yeah, yeah.
younger, and then later my friend James Arthur had the Outlaw with the MPCs on it, you know, so it has
Hmm.
this little like cavity on the back that you can put these cartridges with different effects
Yeah.
in it.
I remember
And
those weird, and they were such a weird shape. I remember those guitars
yeah,
because
it's
there was
like
a
very
Westone Electra too. Westone at one point
yeah.
bought Electra. Yeah, yeah.
The Outlaws are really pointy and all that. But anyway, like John, I guess, had gutted the electronics out of this old Electra. I forget what the model is. It's like GX 900 or something like that. I
Hmm.
had the website pulled up. I'll tell you later. But yeah, this body was just sitting in there with like a bunch of the hardware and like electronics totally missing from it. But I was like, the neck is straight. It looks really nice, but I just left it
Right.
alone. And then like I was over there hanging out with him like months after the first time I'd seen it, and it was just sitting there collecting dust in the greenhouse. And I was like, "What's up with that guitar over there?" And he's like, "You want it? Take it. I don't need it." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Hold on, look at the neck." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's straight." And he's like, "Take it. Do what you want with it." And so I made it my mission to revive that guitar. And a friend of mine had recently like replaced the pickups on his Les Paul, so he gave me like the original like Gibson pickups that came with it.
Right.
And so that's the kind of pickups that are in there now. But then like that company Stuart
Yeah.
McDonald, I was already ordering like guitar tools and stuff from them to like try to like work on my own stuff. And they sell these pedal kits, and I was like, I've been wanting to get a Klon so that like if I'm playing through like an amp that doesn't have a master volume, I can like drive it a little bit before it goes in there,
Sure.
so it doesn't have to be like tearing your head off, to get that grind that I want out of it. But I was like, it already has this cavity in here. Maybe I can like build the pedal board and figure out a way to put it in here in case I'm playing this guitar through an amp that doesn't have gain on it. I'll just
Hmm.
use this instead. And
Gauges.
instead of like using like a toggle switch to turn the pedal on and off, I had this idea to put like the foot switch pedal up where the usual like pickup switch goes.
Right.
So I've got the like a foot pedal thing up here, even though I don't really use it all that much, and I've got a kill switch that turns the battery on and off down here. Which
Wow.
when the battery's unplugged and I'm just playing the guitar, it acts as like a kill switch for the guitar.
Wow.
But yeah, I put a brass nut on it, and I need to refret it. But like it's one of my favorite guitars because
It's so cool looking. Yeah.
it kind of looks like a Les Paul without like the arch top, you know, like a Les Paul Studio or something like that. But
Yeah, it's so cool, and it's such a cool idea, you know. Well,
mhm.
that brings me to another question, and I'll let you go after this because I ask everybody this, and then I want to find out what you're up to next. But do you have one that got away? Do you have a piece of gear, a guitar, an amp, a pedal that you hawked, or you got stolen, or you just left behind, or something that you lament losing?
I mean, I got a laundry list of things that I wish I still had. You know,
Hmm.
there's two Fender Jazz basses that I no longer have that I really liked. One of them I sold right before I moved out to LA. The other one used to belong to my friend Philip Sample, who was a bass player in a band called the Strange Boys.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and
from
I
Austin. Yeah.
recorded their first album, you know. But yeah, he had ditched this bass at our friend's record store, and I was eyeballing the case, and my friend there was just like, "Hey man, he left that. He didn't want it anymore. So if you want to take it," and it was like all messed up. So I took the electronics out, put in new pickups, and fixed it up and played it for a while. And then Graham Lowe, that played bass in A Giant Dog,
Hmm.
he broke his bass, and so I sold that to him, and I haven't had it since. But there's that, and my buddy Stevens Ficina bought like an old Fender Super Reverb that I had fixed up with a friend. I bought it at a pawn shop in Fort Worth, and then I took it back to this amp shop that I used to work at, and we redid the circuit to be more like an older Fender. And like,
Hmm.
dude, that was one of my favorite sounding amps, but I needed money for like a plane ticket or something to go on tour. So I sold it to my friend Steven. And as far as I know, he still has it, but that's one of those amps that like I'd really like to
Yeah.
get back someday, you know.
Well, a working, living a musician, a working musician. That's why I asked that question because usually it's for justified causes. You have to sell something to get something else, or sell something to get somewhere, or maybe you only have one guitar at a time and you want to try another guitar, so you have to trade that one in, and you regret getting rid of the one. It's always an interesting answer. So, what is coming up next for you? What's on the docket?
Well, like, after I get done with you here, I gotta like get to work on some new bad sports stuff. We're actually going out with Spiritual Cramp in February, and so we're doing 5 shows. So I'll be doing double duty with Bad Sports and Spiritual Cramp, and then right after that, for 5 shows, Radioactivity is doing another 5 shows on the tour. So I'm doing like 10 shows of double
Wow.
duty, which is nothing new. You know, Bad
No.
Sports and Radioactivity have done that for years, but like, but yeah, that's coming up. So we're hoping to have at least a couple new Bad Sports songs ready to put out on Bandcamp and all that by the
Great.
time we hit the road.
Great.
Also, Memo PST recorded a new album
Ah,
back in September, and we finished it in late October when I was back from the road with Radioactivity, and I think we're about to be done with the artwork. The masters are approved, but like the new Memo PST record, I'm really stoked on because it's like some of the most fun that I've had, like coming up with like these sort of guitar
yeah.
parts and also recording it, you know. So
Well, what you played me is fantastic, and I think everyone's gonna love that too. Well, man. Oh, and anyone go check out Spiritual Cramp have a new record that just came out not very long ago. And it's fantastic as well. You recorded it with John Congleton, also a Texas native, who has gone on to have Grammys and produce so many amazing records for so many other people who I'd love to have on here as well, actually, because we're old buddies. So that did my heart proud of old friends and new friends all working together. So anyone go check out the new Spiritual Cramp record with that features my buddy here, Orville Neeley. Well, thank you, buddy. I'm sure I'll
Thank
talk to
you.
you on the phone very soon, and it's always a pleasure seeing you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
Hell yeah.
I love that guy, man. I really do. I have good friends. I have talented, good friends, and I've talked to a lot of them here on the podcast. And, if anything, this podcast for me has been to introduce you to folks like Orville Neeley III, or Fadi El-Assad and Ian McDougall from the Riverboat Gamblers, or Dan Phillips. Not that these people needed introductions, but in my opinion, these are these guys, and it's one of the reasons I started this podcast. These are these guys that are just creating this amazing world of music. They're doing it whether people are listening to them do it or not. They're going to do it. That's one thing about growing up here is like you're not used to the world at large hearing what you're doing, but you're compelled to do it just because it's what you do. You make music. That's a lot of my friends. And fortunately, a lot of my friends have gotten out. They're so good that word gets around. If you're the genuine article and people start taking notice, they just do. If it's good enough, and with most of these folks I've had on here, it's definitely good enough. And if I am some small part with introducing them to the guitar world at large, or people that are listening to this podcast, well, I'm going to do my part. And that was definitely Orville Neeley III. I hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. I'm going to thank the folks over at the aforementioned Jim Dunlop and MXR Pedals for believing in me and taking part here. Find out what they're doing over at jimdunlop.com. I'm going to thank the folks at DistroKid for helping you and me and every musician get our music on the streaming platforms and cutting out the middleman. Doing it themselves, the DIY aesthetic, the DIY ethos. That's what DistroKid are doing, folks. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of Orville's work. So the band we have talked about a few times, he had a band called Bad Sports, still has a band called Bad Sports. Actually, they're going to be touring with Spiritual Cramp very soon. Orville will be doing double duty. He'll also be touring the band Radioactivity will be opening for Spiritual Cramp as well on some dates. And to give you a bit of the incestuous history of Texas bands, Dan and Orville are both in Radioactivity. Orville plays bass in Radioactivity. Dan plays guitar. Dan and Orville both are also 2/3 of the band Bad Sports, where Dan plays bass and Orville plays guitar. They both sing in that band. Then Orville is opening for himself in Spiritual Cramp, where he plays guitar, but he started in the band filling in on bass. So hopefully that Venn diagram made sense to you. If I did a Venn diagram of Texas musicians, it would be directionless. It would just be all over the place. Anyway, so at the end, I'm going to leave you with a Bad Sports song. This is the song Constant Stimulation. Orville, they recorded this record with one of my guitars, one of my Les Pauls. That's a fun fact. But also, I am singing background vocals on this song because we all help each other out here in Texas. It's one big happy family, and we all help each other out. So you might hear my dumb, weird Mickey Mouse voice on the choruses. And it's my guitar you're listening to on this, played by the wonderful talent that is Orville Neeley III. Again, I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoy these episodes where I get to talk to my buddies and my family members. At the end, I am going to remind you once again, now more than ever, because of how completely charged our American and political landscape is, to use your vote. It's coming up. And always remember to help out folks that are immigrating to other countries to have better lives. Use your vote to help out queer folks of all stripes and trans folks. And always remember to free Palestine. I love every one of you, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to keep doing these, and I hope to see you next time.